and welcome to Doubles and Trebles. We're back with some more darts content, and it's time for an update on the Premier League. Last time we spoke, there was 5 nights in the bank. Now we've had another 4 nights. Judgment night has taken place, or not, depending on which PDC Twitter handle you follow. But basically, 2 players have been relegated. So we've played 9 games. We was at 10 competitors. We're now at 8. Last week marked the end for Glen Durrant, as predicted on this channel. Unfortunately for him, he lost all 9 of his games. He's out of this competition. And a little bit more surprisingly, but not massively surprisingly to me, Rob Cross is also gone. Can count himself a little bit unlucky, actually, given the way the table panned out. But Pieman's here to fill us all in. So, Pieman, tell us what's been going on in the Premier League.
Cheers, Adam. Well, starting off with the relegated duo, I mean, I don't think you could be overly surprised at the 2 that have ended up going. I mean, Glen Durrant, let's deal with that first, because that wasn't very enjoyable for any darts fan to watch, really. He's played 9, lost 9. Really tough couple of weeks for Glen. We did kind of unfortunately anticipate this in our tournament preview. He's just really struggling with his game at the moment. Seems to have completely lost his action. I was willing him to get a point in that last game against Rob Cross. He got it to 6-5, and unfortunately it wasn't to be. And it's one that will go to the books for Glen. It's probably the toughest moment in his career, and I think he said as much. You know, the greatest moment in his career 12 months earlier, and now probably the lowest point in his career. And it's got to be a tough road back for Glen Durrant, because his throw looks in a really bad place. I think he needs to have a bit of time away from darts, you know, just spend a bit of time with his family, regroup and rediscover his love for the game, really, because it just looked a strain. He looked like he was battling with his throw all the way through this Premier League. And as I say, it was pretty tough to watch. Rob Cross, on the other hand, well, he could count himself quite unlucky to go out, I think. I mean, he made a really good start, encouraging start, to the point where we were discussing at the halfway mark of this first phase whether Rob Cross was a potential runner in this tournament and whether he was back to his best. But unfortunately, probably came in, needed to win, 2 at least, maybe 3, to give himself a standing chance. Unfortunately, he lost the first 3 nights of this next phase, and that was enough to relegate him, with other results going in a quite unfortunate fashion, really. Everyone around him kind of picked up points one way or the other off each other. And what that's left us with is a really compacted table, and Cross, the unlucky one that misses out, just a point shy of Gary Anderson, and a couple short of Peter Wright. So, yeah, I mean, he'll consider himself unlucky. But I quite like Rob Cross. I'm taking him out of this as a one to watch, because I think, he's come in. He was expected to get relegated, but he showed some form there. He was a little bit unlucky. And I expect his prices to remain quite sizable for upcoming tournaments. But definitely signs that Rob Cross can get back to somewhere near where he was when he won that World Championship.
Yeah, just on the relegation, Pieman, it is no surprise that them 2 have gone, really, given their form in phase 2. There was 4 nights. So in phase 2, they've each played 4 games, and there's been 7 losses and 1 win between them. And that win actually came from Rob Cross on the final night, where it was borderline, irrelevant, as it turned out. So, yeah, they just didn't. Cross particularly didn't pick up enough points in the in phase 2, if you like. So yeah, looking at the 8 remaining, it's Nathan Aspinall who tops the list. Certainly a surprise, given that we thought he was out of form coming into this tournament, although he was showing signs and he was talking a much better game coming into the tournament. So it won't be a surprise to him that he tops the table. He's tied on 13 points after the 9 games played with Dimitri van Den Bergh, which is a bigger surprise than Aspinall as well, because he's been injured, he's been poor in the tour events, etc. An unlikely duo, Pieman, but you certainly gave both of them a bit of a thumbs up in our last update, and they've really kicked on and gone again, these 2 in what we're calling phase 2.
Well, yeah, initially, before this tournament started, we were talking about both of these in a concerning tone, really. We said that Nathan Aspinall was bang out of form. We kind of alluded that his gritty kind of character would sort of see him through and make him competitive at the very least. But I've been really, really impressed with him. What he's actually done is he appears to have recaptured some of his very best form. And what I like is all facets of his game seem to be in good order. There's not one particular element that is carrying him through. I think you could say with other players, for example, Dimitri being one, his scoring is, it's far and above what carries him through. not to say that he's particularly bad at doubling, but you just know what you're going to get from him in the scoring sticks. Relentless 180s and 140s. Aspinall, if the scoring goes a little bit awry, he could dig in and get the finishes, and vice versa. And I just think he's a really in-form player in a good moment. He's got a lot of self-belief, self-confidence, all flooding back into him. He's been here and done it in the final last year, so we know that he stays the course in this competition. And you couldn't go against him going one better on what we've seen. I mean, in that recent phase, he played 4, won 3, drawn 1, lost none. Same for Dimitri. He won 3 and then only drew on the last evening. So, I mean, he's in fantastic nick as well. And as I say with Dimitri, the scoring is just phenomenal. It's like it's everything we hoped we would see from Dimitri on TV. Because when we've seen him at World Championships, at the Grand Prix that he won last year, when he's at his best, he can go with anybody, and he's so young. He's got such a long upward curve ahead of him, and it's really exciting, I think, for the future of darts to see somebody doing this on this stage, such a consistent fashion. So, yeah, very impressed with them both, and you'd be hard pressed to say that they won't be making finals like the pair of them.
Yep, Dimitri, 41 180s in the tournament so far, only behind Jose, who's got 50. He's got over double the amount of 180s that Van Gerwen's got. Van Gerwen there on 20, does go down for the 19s. But like you said, you mentioned Aspinall's finishing. He's got the highest checkout percentage across the tournament so far at 51%. I mean, if you're checking out at 51%, you're going to win more games than you lose, to be fair. So, yeah, hats off to Aspinall. Just looking down to third, Van Gerwen, a man that we speak about often for obvious reasons. Third place, 11 points for the tournament so far, so he's just a win behind the top 2. What did you make of his most recent 4 evenings, Pieman? Was he impressive or underwhelming?
Well, it was a mixed bag, to be honest, and I know that's obvious from someone that's, 1, 2, drawn 1, lost 1, but it really was. I mean, he produced a fantastic performance, vintage Van Gerwen performance, to beat Jose de Sousa 7-4. And I mean, Jose can consider himself unlucky there, because I think if he'd played MVG on any of the other 3 nights, he'd have won. Van Gerwen brought his best game that evening, and he was very impressive. But then equally on the last night, Jonny Clayton smashed him to bits. And yep. It was like watching a different Van Gerwen. It was such a chalk and cheese performance. It's almost what we've come to expect from a Peter Wright more than an MVG, to be honest. Very unlike him. He's struggling to string 2 results together. I think his class will get him into the final 4. And that's where he's dangerous, isn't it? Because, he's been to these finals nights more than most in this field. He'll bring his very best game, you would think, for the finals night, and the longer format of finals night should help MVG. But I don't think it's an absolute foregone conclusion that he'll get there. As I say, he's having to rely on his class here. He's, pulling draws out of the fire, which is something I don't really associate with MVG. Normally he's very, efficient in the way he goes about his business. He gets the wins with a minimum of fuss. But when he's having to dig in, he is getting these draws. And I think these points that he's securing, 3 draws already, that could be vital for him in getting to that next stage. And an interesting 8 games left for him. I don't think it's a foregone conclusion, but my gut tells me he will just make it.
Just behind Van Gerwen is 2 players on 10 points. One of them is James Wade, and then just below him is Jonny Clayton. Now, you obviously tipped Clayton at this, months ago, as it feels like now, in January, saying that Clayton could well go well in this. He is going well. He was 28-1 when you put him up. He went off about 8-1 in the market, particularly when Gerwin Price was a surprise withdrawal late on. But last time we spoke about the Premier League, Pieman, your man Clayton was top. He's 5th now. What's happened?
Well, not a lot, to be honest. I mean, it just shows the compact nature of this table, that you have a couple of off nights or you don't get the results you perhaps deserve, and you can go plummeting down it. Believe it or not, coming into the last night, Jonny Clayton was actually in 7th, having been top 3 nights earlier. And he had to pull out a fantastic win against Van Gerwen just to get himself back up to 5th. And I think that was an important win, I mean, it just puts that distance between him and Gary Anderson. And, if you're coming in at the bottom of this 8 on 8 points, you're coming in with a different mindset there. You're thinking, I've got an uphill task to catch up these lads. I need to be stringing wins together. Just being in that middle block and 10, if he turns up on the next night and wins, he's straight into the top 4. He'll still feel like it's in his hands. Of course, it's in all of these players' hands, but it's not an unattainable task. And I still really fancy Jonny Clayton to make a good go of getting into this final 4. As for James Wade, I'd almost written him off, which is unwise to do with James Wade. You should never write him off. We know this, but he hadn't really shown enough. He's got 10 points, 5 of which he picked up on the last 3 nights. So, going into the Tuesday night, he was very much in contention to be relegated. Suddenly he finds himself in contention to be, towards the top of the table. And it just shows. And I think Wade's, we did have a comment on one of our earlier videos about somebody saying that you should never write Wade off. And, he's tenacious and he can grind out the points. And so it's showing. I was quite impressed with him. I still don't think he'll make that Final 4. But I think he'll be there with a puncher's chance right until the end.
Yeah, coming down the table a little bit, Pine Man. We're into 6th and 7th. There's 2 players locked on 9 points there, Jose and Peter Wright. Now, I want to split the conversation for the purposes of this chat because I think Jose's been bang on lucky. We spoke about the first 5 nights, Jose, to only get 1 win out of that first week, I thought was quite remarkable. And it came on the last night, and he could have drawn that match that he actually won in phase 1. Phase 2 is come back to back wins the first 2 nights, and then tailed off towards the back end of the week with a loss and a draw. But he's already at 9 daughters in this tournament. He's at 50 180s, which is a shed load more than everyone. Dimitri's on 41, and then it's a shed load more than everyone else. He's got one of the highest averages as well, Jose. He's got the second highest average. He's checking out at 43%. He's in 180s for fun, and he finds himself in 6th place. I think he's been unlucky personally. Just before we move on to Snake, talk to me about Jose, because he's recently had a win on the tour as well, Pyman.
Well, I totally agree with you. He has been very, very unlucky, probably the unluckiest player in this tournament to date. He's been fantastic. We all know the errors in his game with the counting, and we all know that he's susceptible to making the wrong decisions sometimes in matches and having a lull. But he has been just dreadfully unlucky. He bumped into Michael van Gerwen, who averaged 105, and that stopped him in his tracks in this second phase, if you will, because he'd won the previous 2 nights, playing well, averaging over a ton on both nights. Really impressive. Arguably player of the night on both nights. Comes in against Van Gerwen, averages a ton again and gets beat. That's unfortunate. And then Peter Wright on the next night produces the performance of the entire Premier League so far for him. I mean, his average wouldn't tell you that because his average tailed off towards the end as Jose got back into it, and Jose managed to scramble a point. But when Wright was ahead early in this game, he was averaging north of 110, and he was just hitting everything. I mean, Jose really bumped into him, and I think he's done that 3 or 4 times now. What I would say is, there's a line of thought there to say, well, if he's been unlucky, does that mean that he's still going to get through? Well, I'm not sure this format is necessarily long enough for the luck to even out, if you will. I think that bad luck might have already done the damage. He already finds himself having to make up 3 or 4 points on the likes of Nathan Aspinall, Dimitri van Den Bergh. Now, you're not only relying on Jose starting to pick up more wins, but you're also relying on some of these lads tailing off a bit. And just the way that particularly Aspinall and Van Den Bergh are going about their business, I don't really see them tailing off. So that's 2 spots kind of gone. And then he finds himself in this cluster with the likes of MVG, who, as we say, you would expect would get a spot. And he's basically battling with the likes of Clayton, Wade and Wright for that last spot. So it's, he's going to need a bit of luck, but he certainly deserves it. And I hope he gets it. I'd be delighted to see him make the semis.
Yep, absolutely. And then we're just coming down the table a little bit to who are the bottom 2 at the minute, the 2 Scotsmen, Peter Wright and Gary Anderson, Wright on 9 points, Gary on 8. Now, it's no surprise that these are the only 2 players that remain in the tournament that are yet to bag back-to-back wins. It's a win, a draw, a loss, a win, a draw, a loss. Yet to really hit top form. I don't think Anderson's interested, to be quite honest with you. I called that a few months ago when we first did this video. He won't be getting in the playoffs from 8 points in my eye. But yeah, Snake infuriating as ever, Pyman.
Yeah, I don't want to. You've got Peter Wright on the same points as Jose de Sousa. And as I say, he played brilliantly against him. But those 2 couldn't have had more contrasting Premier Leagues, in my opinion. I've been really disappointed with Peter Wright. We know he can be inconsistent, but on the nights he's been off, he's been way off. And it's just not been... His matches haven't been that engrossing to watch because he doesn't seem to be where he should be. Same applies for Anderson. What I would say about Gary Anderson, he's had to show some class to get the points he has, to be honest, because if you were going on the raw performances, I would say Rob Cross probably deserves to be still in this tournament more than Gary Anderson. But Gary Anderson's class at key moments, there's been a few games where going into them last 3 or 4 legs, he's just turned on the afterburners briefly, having shown nothing beforehand, and it gets him a point, it gets him 2 points, and that's why he's still in this. Now, I don't think against the 7 that he's still in with, he has got a chance really of getting into that top 4. I know it's unwise to rule out a player of that quality, but I've just not seen enough from him. I'd question his attitude a little bit like yourself, and I'm quite confident to say that I don't think Peter Wright or Gary Anderson will be making the final 4. I think it's between 6.
Yeah, so like we say, we've got 8 players left. There is 7 nights of regular season action to play, if you like, and then 1 night of the final semis and the final. So we have 3 nights taking place of regular season, the 5th, 6th and 7th of May back to back. And then week commencing the 24th of May, the Monday, they play 4 nights back to back of the regular season. They'll concrete the top 4, and then we'll have the finals night on Friday, May the 28th. There's in contrast to when we first did our videos, there's quite a few interesting markets up there now, Pieman, to talk through. I'll just run you through to win the tournament outright. So regardless of where they finish in the table, to win the semi and the final on May the 28th. Unsurprisingly, we've got Michael van Gerwen up there at 2-1 favourite. Dimitri is then second favourite, 100 to 30 top price, followed by Aspinall at 6-1. I mean, there's got to be some juice in that. Aspinall's top price, 6-1, particularly in comparison to Dimitri, who is in the region of half the price. I mean, I don't see why. They're both playing really well. They're both top of the league on the same points. Don't see much reason behind that. Jonny Clayton's in the region of 8-1, which is pretty much how we started the tournament, but it definitely wasn't that price when Pieman put him up at 28s in January. Snakebites 10-1 best price. We don't think he'll be making the playoffs. Jose's 11-1. And a little bit of a surprise to me, James Wade, who currently holds a place in the top 4 currently, he's best price 10-1 as well. So, you know, to have Peter Wright shorter than him, I don't really get it. And Anderson, name your price. My opinion on this market as it stands, Pieman, would be Jose de Souza. He's playing well in the Premier League. He's playing well away from the Premier League. And he is on 9 points, but he's got to put a little bit of a run together, and I think he can do it. I think that Michael van Gerwen could quite easily not qualify for the semi-finals, if you ask me. He's only managed to amass 11 points after 9 games. Normally, after the phase 1 in a normal year, when the 2 players have been relegated, Van Gerwen's gone. He's gone away. He's top of the league, and you know he could be on 15, 16, 17 points at this stage. We've seen that in previous years, and we've not seen it this year. So I think that they're playing for 2 places, to be fair. I think Van Gerwen, Wade, Clayton and de Souza, we've got to split them 4 into 2. And Aspinall and Van Den Bergh, obviously, if they carry on the form they're in, will qualify. So just in the outright market, Pieman, where would your money be if you had to have a bet right now?
Well, if I was picking someone to win the tournament for value, I would probably say Nathan Aspinall, to be honest. I think you were right with what you say. There's no reason why he should be nearly twice the price of Dimitri van Den Bergh. That's not a slight on Dimitri van Den Bergh, who I've been very impressed with. I just think they should both be probably around, where Aspinall's price is. I think it shows that Dimitri is quite a fashionable player. Yeah. He's quite fast. He's quite high scoring, and he's very entertaining to watch. You feel like if Van Gerwen turned up and hit his high scores and stuff, Dimitri can go with him. I guess that plays a factor in it and stuff. And I don't know. I just think Nathan Aspinall's badly undervalued in the market. Still, I'd have him a couple of points short of myself. So yeah, that would be where I'd be pointing someone in direction of a winner right now. I'm still very happy with my position on Jonny Clayton. I think he's just quietly going about his business. He's impressed me as much now when he's sat in mid-table as he was when he was top of the table. And there's not a lot in this table. You know, it only takes a couple of bad nights, couple of good nights, and you're moving 4 or 5 places. By the same mark, I think you're probably right about James Wade. You know what I mean? He's in the position now. We know that he's got the quality to keep himself there. He'll fancy himself in the first of 10 legs against anyone. He's done it. He's beat all of these guys over that kind of format. So yeah, you couldn't write him out. But yeah, Nathan Aspinall with a gun to my head. I think that's the selection. Jose, I hope he gets there. I'd be delighted if he does. I just wonder whether these unfortunate drop points in this early phase are gonna just catch up with him. He might just miss out by a point or 2, but we'll see.
Yeah, he can't continue to do that, but I think you could view it the other way, that he's been bang knocking on the door. He's been unlucky to get these draws rather than lucky or pulling them out of the fire to get the draws. So I see it as, he's only 2 or 3 or 5% away from turning them draws into and some losses into wins quite easily. There's a market up there for to finish in the top 4. Unsurprisingly, Van Den Bergh 1-7, Nathan Aspinall 2-9. They're up there in the table anyway. Van Gerwen 1-4. I wouldn't back that if I found money on the floor personally. No. Clayton's 5-4, Snake's 7-4, Jose's 2-1, and for some unbelievable reason, and my eyes are working, James Wade is not quoted in this market, so there's a bit of a rick there, possibly on Odds Checker. But I'm serious, James Wade isn't quoted in the market. But I would tell you his price would be in the region of Jose's at about 2-1. So that's to reach the semi-final, i.e. finishing top 4. A little bit of a more interesting market to me, Pieman, to top the league. So after all the games have been played, the 16 games played before the semis and finals, who will finish top of the league? Currently, that spot is held by Nathan Aspinall, currently on leg difference, shared with Dimitri van Den Bergh. Van Den Bergh 7-4, Aspinall's 5-2, Van Gerwen's 5-2. Now, people might look at that Van Gerwen and say, well, he's the class player, you're getting him at 5-2. Fair enough. And then I think that the other guys, just with the way the table is looking, the likes of Clayton, Wright, Jose, etc., haven't got a chance of topping the table. But between them 3, Pieman, where would your money be there?
Well, I'm just looking at the table now. I mean, look, you've got you've played 9, you've got 8 to come, so we're kind of just over the halfway point. 13 is the lead at the moment, so using some arithmetic, you're probably looking at around the 24, 25 point mark to top this table. That means the likes of Wade and Clayton need to be picking up 14 points from the remaining 8 games. So that does seem a little bit of a stretch.
7 games, Pieman.
Sorry, yeah, exactly. So it does seem a bit of a stretch. That total I may have overshot it. That's just a rough estimate, but I do think I'll be with Nathan Aspinall, to be honest, to top the table. I just think if he continues to do what he does, I think he's the most likely man to top it. And I wouldn't be inclined to go with Van Gerwen, to be honest. I understand the class angle, but just for everything we've said, I don't think he's a certainty to get into the top 4. So I couldn't be having 5-2 about him topping the table. I'd rather let him run and let him top it by 5 points, to be honest.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So, yeah, that's what we're thinking so far. Pieman is still holding out hope for Jonny Clayton, and as he should be, he's on at 28-1. And I'm going to have a bit of a go on Jose at 9-1. I think. I think he's more than
11,
10-1. 10 or 11-1. I'm going to have a fiver on Jose and hope that he can sneak into the top 4. Then on finals night, anything can happen, as we saw last year. So, all aboard the Jose train for me. Thanks for watching, and we'll certainly be doing a preview of the final phase where there's 5 nights back to back, and the table will be even more wide open at that stage, I imagine. So we'll be back soon with some more darts content, and thanks for watching. Cheers.